here with AJ Clingerman. The other day that I posted a video with me and James doing a Peruvian necktie. Super cool submission. If you haven't checked that out, you can go to the links below. I'll put the link to that video. But I'm talking to his wife, AJ. And AJ, like she's been training for how long now?
The first time I trained was in 99.
Right. Well, she because if you listen to the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, we had her on the podcast already, and but you were training a little bit back in the day, but in earnest, you started training like.
Yeah, I really got back into it in about 2011, 2012.
Okay, cool. So she's been involved with Jiu-Jitsu for a long time, helping her run the Ego tournament and getting that stuff going. And then again, she got into it in earnest in 2010, 2011. But I wanted to talk to you because I know that you run that big camp. Like last year, you guys had 100, was it, how many women?
So in 19, we had 160 women.
160 women.
We had 130 this year in a pandemic.
Wow. And that's crazy to me because when I think about, women getting into jiu-jitsu back in the day, it was just such there really weren't any women training. There's very, very few. Even our gym, with our female only classes, it's growing. What do you say? Because I know that, for instance, a lot of times, when women come into the gym, they're a lot of times accessing a different side of themselves that a lot of times they're not incentivized to access in society, just because, again, it's one of those things where, there's incentive for, men to be rough and tumble. It's just how we are naturally, I think, anyway, in a lot of cases, not everyone. But a lot of times if women kind of get this urge to do it, because I've seen that happen a lot of times with some of the women that train with us, they, maybe had that urge to do it, but then they would kind of go, and they would say, well, they would look at it, it's very physical. Mm-hmm. Physical, it's sweaty, it's close contact, all that stuff. All the stuff they're just not really that familiar with, and so a lot of times they'll write it off. And then a lot of people with jiu-jitsu, they get into it and they're like, wow, that was way better than I thought. What kind of experiences or, stories or even just anything that you have to share for women that are maybe either on the fence about training, or if they're in that early phase of training, they're kind of getting over that initial hump where you're kind of getting your feet under you. What kind of message or sort of information maybe that you have to share with those kind of women that are in that situation?
Yeah. I think first, to know that jiu-jitsu can legit be for anyone. In my women's classes, we have women that are 100 pounds or 300 pounds. We have women that are 11-year-olds in class to 50-something. It doesn't really matter, and same with where they come from or what they do for a living. Mm-hmm. We've got stay-at-home moms and soldiers and police officers and lawyers and doctors. Mm-hmm. And so it's all different types of people. So to say oh, I'm not athletic, or I've never done anything like this before. And all the time I have people am I too old for this? I had a 19-year-old girl ask me over and over, am I too old to start this? Mm-hmm. No. And you think about women that are 40 asking that question, but you don't think about even 19-year-olds are concerned that they're too old or... I
get 24-year-old guys asking me, am I too old to train? I'm like, no, dude, you're in great shape. Yes, you're fine.
It's a great time. Yeah. It start at any time. And, I try to tell people, we've had, people start at 64 years old. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. And the good thing about jiu-jitsu is it's very adaptable. Mm-hmm. You can train as hard as you want to train. Mm-hmm. We're going to push you, of course, but it's your journey. So I think knowing that, you are represented on the mat mm-hmm. is important.
Yeah, I've got a woman right now, her name's Kathy, and she's in her, I believe she's in her either late 40s, early 50s, and she's training, and she did judo a long time ago, and she just got back into jiu-jitsu training with us, and she comes in, and again, she's not chasing the 20-year-old guy, who's been wrestling his whole life, she's not chasing that path, but she's chasing her own.
Yeah,
she's even going to try to do a competition coming up, as of time of filming this. And so again, like you said, it can be adapted to you. And mm-hmm. I think that, I don't know about you, grappling even helped me, and I think this is good for men and women, but sometimes for women especially, it sort of accesses, like I said, a different side of themselves that sometimes they've never even gotten into, that physical, hands-on sort of side. Did you have an experience where you were training and you realize maybe the physicality that you've developed doing this stuff or anything?
Yeah, for sure. Actually not training. It was after a cancer walk, uh-huh. and my sister, it was for my sister, that's why we were all there, and some of her friends had wrestled and they were wrestling around, and I was I've got winner, half joking, and then I wrestled around on the ground in the park with this dude that was much bigger than me, and I was kind of like handling him, and I like it's so funny because it's like not actually a part of my like jiu-jitsu journey, but just to be able to say like, oh, this can really work, like I can do this and I can be successful with it. That helped me a lot. It helped me with my confidence, and like, you know, another thing about jiu-jitsu is the confidence aspect, right? Like you learn what your body can do, what it's capable of.
You get feedback.
And yeah, absolutely. And so you feel less self-conscious because like you're like, this is a machine. Like, so I think that's very helpful for women especially. I mean, guys too, but like women especially, they need that.
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's helpful for everyone. I think that it's one of those things where there's no, whether you're a man or a woman, I think there's a great benefit into knowing what your body can do, having physical confidence, and knowing that you can do it. I just know that, like, sometimes for me, for instance, it's like, you know, we as humans, we look around for models, you know, and we say, you did it, so maybe I can do it because you kind of look like me and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that you're seeing more and more women get into the sport where it's encouraging more women to get into it. But for a long time, it wasn't that case. So, you know, if you went into a gym back in the day, you'd walk in and there's no women. So someone had to kind of be the trailblazer because the rest of the women looking around like, well, it's a bunch of big, strong, meathead guys and there's none for me. Like so how, like, I guess women don't do this. And so it's interesting to see that more and more women are sticking through it. And like, you know, you see more and more women like yourself promoting it and everything else. It's, but it's neat. One of the neatest things, I have these realizations sometimes when I'm training, like, you know, sometimes I'll be on the mat and I'll just look around and I've had this one before. I'm looking around like there's a Christian and like an atheist. There's a black guy, a white guy, an Asian guy, a Hispanic guy. I mean, you've got everything under the sun training. There's a dude that's like literally independently wealthy. He's got more money than he knows what to do with. And this guy, he works like a construction job. I mean, you get this whole gamut. But there's also been a neat one where I remember one time I had this woman, she comes in, she's one of my students that was training. And, you know, usually like if I've got like a fairly decent sized young guy, I don't let him roll with a woman in the beginning just because I don't know where their head's at, and I don't want them to go crazy and possibly injure them in the beginning. But she ended up rolling with him. He was about 185 pounds. She's probably about 145, 150. And he was getting kind of rough with her, and he like squeezed on her head. She tapped out because she was just getting her neck wrenched on, so she stopped, and she had this little headband. I remember she like just kind of adjusted, and I was like, and I was getting ready to step in. She's like, she just kind of does this. She's like, no, I got this. She puts her headband on and she beats the brakes off him afterwards. She like gets around and like starts choking him and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm like, and I was just thinking, I was like, this mother of three is putting it on this 20-year-old guy, and this is a neat thing to watch because I would have, as a kid, I never thought of moms and dads like doing this. You know, I just never would have just never thought about it. You know, you just never thought like, oh yeah, like when mom's done with work, she goes and like beats up guys at the gym.
It's great for me now because like just last week I had a private lesson scheduled and like a first time. They've never been through the door. They come in and it's for the daughter. She's like 17 or 18 and I grew up with her mom. And I was like, well, you're going to do this too. And she's like, I'm too old. And I'm like, girl, it's me. Like, we grew up together, you know, like I'm the same age, obviously. So it's a neat position to be able to be in because I can show that mom that she can do everything her daughter can do. That's
super cool. So if you're a woman out there, again, just throwing you to AJ, check out her stuff. She's got a podcast. What's your podcast called?
Podcast is Beauty and the Gi.
Beauty and the Gi. My girlfriend loves listening to it. She listens to every episode. And then you've got a camp that comes up every year. It's a women's only camp. What is that called?
It's called Role Model, ROLL, obviously, because it's jiu-jitsu. Role Model Women's Only Grappling Camp. This next year will be our 7th camp, I think.
When's your first camp? What was the numbers like that first one?
We had like 50 our first camp.
That's pretty good. They're at like 150
We
plus.
did 50 or 60 for the first several, and then one year we just blew up. Tripled it.
Super cool. So I'll put the links down for that in the description box down below in case you guys are interested. And AJ, it's good seeing you again.
Good to see you too. Thank you very much.